Welcome to Suited for Gaming, everyone. Today, we'll look at PrototypeZ's 1/6 Akuma and its variant, the Shin Akuma. So first things first, let's start with the shipper and packaging. As you can see, the shipper is pretty compact and thin, which is a huge plus for space management. On the inside, there's a brown cardboard piece protecting the art box from the shipper, and when we delve one extra layer deeper, we have the art print. This is perhaps the first disappointment for me. I would have liked to see an art print at least protected in a thicker manila envelope. As it was just lying there. My print that came with the regular Akuma was fine, but the edges of the one that came with the Shin Akuma had more wrinkles than an old lady eating a bag of raisins. My guess is that the print was pressed against the art box metal protective edges, which is actually the next plus. The metal edges on the art box are very much appreciated, as from my experience, this tend to be the highest point of impact on delivery. Almost every art box I have has been damaged at the edges during shipping, but the PrototypeZ packages so far seem to be the exception. It's attention to little things like this that can elevate the customer experience, and it's definitely not lost on me. And the subtlety flows over and into the art itself. The art and the image position is eye-catching and practical for those who like to display the box with the statue. Akuma sits on the periphery, which gives ample space to display the statue without obscuring the art. I only wish that majority of the text or information was kept solely in the back of the box to heighten displayability. Aside from that, the art is pretty similar between Akuma and Shin, except for the Satsui no Hado emanating around Shin's box. Now, inside the art box is where we start to see a descent in quality and customer experience. I was a bit heartbroken to see a regular white foam encasing, which was a step down from the Ryu statue that had the velvet cloth stitched around and into the inserts. That was the best packaging I'd ever seen, and it's sad to see that it didn't carry over to this statue. The Velcro belt, on the other hand, is a new and nice touch, which definitely keeps things less messy than dealing with the average sticky tape. So that's it for packaging. Let's take a look inside for parts and assembly. And when I say parts, I'm not joking around. This had more parts than I was expecting. I believe there are 15 parts in total, maybe 16 for the Shin Akuma variant, since he comes with an extra portrait. It can seem a bit daunting, but once you start putting it together, it all makes sense because you realize the majority of the pieces are clothing related. With this being a fully sculpted statue, the clothes are cut in half and you'll have to assemble them yourself around the torso. Having it done in the factory and shipped would have definitely led to breakages, and sculpting it directly over the torso would have taken away multiple display options. So this is definitely the best case scenario to appeal to varying consumer preferences, which is one of the most important things in my book. But you'll have to be careful though, since assembling the clothes can be tricky and could lead to breakages if not done correctly. They are magnetized, and the clothes themselves are sculpted with pointy, fragile edges, which can easily break off or scuff the torso if you're not careful. My lower gi and a piece of hair on the Akuma regular portrait arrived broken due to how fragile those tips can be. It's really tempting to try and assemble the clothes around the statue while it's standing, but I found the best course of action is to take the back half of the gi in the palm of your arm, place the torso on it, and then follow it up with the front half of the gi, kind of like making a sandwich. The socket holes on the gi did not align perfectly, but the material has a slight slack that allows it to be pushed into the holes with a bit of elbow grease. And once done, you can put the assembled pieces on the legs and follow it up with the other pieces. As for the torn gi option that reveals the full torso, it's much more forgiving in terms of assembly. You just snap it on the statue like a belt and presto, you're done. Aside from the gi, everything else was easy and intuitive when it came to assembly, and the inclusion of the stand to make a mini torso for the pieces not being displayed is a fantastic addition that I hope to see continue across the rest of the line. And with that, let's check out the actual statues themselves. Shin and Akuma are pretty much the same sculpt. Not much different with the exception of the colors. The Akuma statue has a deeper and darker paint tone to the clothing and of course the reddish brown hair and kanji on the back, whereas Shin has a more bluish gi with white hair and kanji. Shin also comes with a third portrait that is battle damaged. This is probably the biggest disappointment I have with the statue, and I'll tell you why with a little bit of backstory. Before I started collecting this line, the first question I asked PrototypeZ was if there would be any differences between the 1/6 and quarter scale statues, and if so, which would be the definitive version to collect. I got a very confident no as the answer. They said that their goal is to make sure that there isn't any difference or advantages between both scales, and sure enough they kept that promise with the Ryu and Evil Ryu statues. But fast forward months later, I was shocked to find out during the consumer updates they decided to put light up eyes only in the quarter scale Shin Akuma battle damaged portrait. In their defense, they did state that they wanted to do it in the 1/6 scale version, but it was impossible from an engineering standpoint since the portraits are too small to house the electronics required. But as a consolation, they would paint the eyes white in lieu of the light up features. And ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, they didn't even deliver on that promise. So what we basically have here is just the regular portrait with slightly darkened eye sockets and 2 streaks of red paint. Aside from that disappointment, the rest of the statue is stellar. The paintwork is detailed and the layers shine through. You can see the freckles in the skin with each one having different strengths and visibilities. And the shedding in the chest is not overdone. It works in unison with the sculpted depth and striations of the muscles to create complexity in the skin tones. And much like the Ryu statue, the bruising around the elbows and the ankles add a layer of realism and enhance the story of a battle-hardened warrior. The kanji are super clean and the lines don't stray a single iota, which is a testament to the effort that went into the paintwork when considering how small of a surface area they have to work with on a 1/6 scale torso. And my favorite of all is of course the gi. The folds, the puffiness, and the fit around the waist and shoulders are sculpted to perfection, and they're believable enough to give any form of mixed media a run for its money. And to be honest, for me, as much as I love the work that went into the gi, I love the musculature even more. This is a study in anatomy just as much as it is a piece of art to ogle at. I don't see myself covering up that torso, at least not anytime soon. And to top it all off, it's all standing on an amazing base that teases Akuma's lore, with the rope that encases the base in the molten magma with sips of lava peering out of its cracks. This is a true ode to Akuma and to those who appreciate the character's in-game appearances and stages. To address some concerns I've heard from people regarding the difference between Akuma and Ryu, I can tell you that having seen them side by side, the size difference is fine, keeping in mind that Akuma's base is slightly taller than Ryu's, and most importantly, Ryu is in a fighting stance, whereas Akuma is standing tall. When eliminating those factors, these two are perfectly within acceptable scales of each other. So there you have it, fellow collectors. I've given you my favorite and least favorite aspects of this statue. And while I don't care much for some of the packaging choices and the lack of consistency between the quarter and 6 scale versions, at the end, all of it pales in comparison to the final product that PrototypeZ has delivered to my doorstep. The statue, the design, the paintwork, the detailing, the portraits, they're all a massive step up from the Ryu they started with. And that's nothing to scoff at, since that Ryu is the best depiction of the classic Ryu in the market today. Hopefully, Erick Sosa and the rest of his team at PrototypeZ can keep that upward trajectory and work out the kinks along the way to make this the definitive Street Fighter line to have. But in all honesty, so far, so good. Thanks for watching.